Hey there, Stan Shields here with another edition of Network Las Vegas Spotlight. So today is a special presentation. We will be doing an interview with our special guest, and I'm going to tell you who that is in just a minute. So I'm going to tease you a little bit, not tell you right away. But Network Las Vegas is a networking organization here in Las Vegas. However, we do have members and we have people who join us from all around the country. COVID helped us break that barrier. And so, one of the things we do for our monthly networking meeting is that we will spotlight a local nonprofit organization to really help them gain more awareness and get some more eyeballs on whatever it is that they do. And so that's what we're going to do today is we're going to interview a special guest from one of the local nonprofit organizations. Now, before I tell you who it is, we're going to do our next live networking event is going to be next Tuesday, which is May 24th. It will be from 5 to 7 p.m. at Vice Realty, which is on East Flamingo Road. You can find all the details for that at the link that you see above my head, networklasvegas.com. So if you go there, you'll find the information for next Tuesday's monthly social, and we'd love to have you join us at that event. But you'll also find all the details for our regular meetings that we have on the first and third Wednesday of each month. They're at 11:30 a.m. And one of them, the first one, the first Wednesday of the month is a hybrid meeting, which means you can join us either online or you can join us in person. It's your choice. So come check it out. Join us and look and see whether or not it makes sense for you and if it's a good fit for your business. All right, without further ado, let me introduce you to Vickie Wilson. And Vickie is with the CASA program. And I'm going to let Vickie tell you a little bit more about who she is. And then we'll dive into CASA and what's that program's all about. So Vickie, tell us a little bit about you. Welcome first. Welcome. And then tell us a little bit about who you are.
Thank you, and I appreciate the invitation. My name is Vickie Wilson, and I'm a volunteer coordinator for the CASA program. More about myself, I've been with the CASA program for approximately 3.5 years, and I've been in child welfare for over 20. I've worked in many capacities to include direct care, recruiting foster and adoptive parents, being an adoption match person for the department, as well as a permanency supervisor. So this is a wonderful opportunity here with District Court to find volunteers for children in foster care.
Awesome. Thank you. So I'm so glad that you're able to join us today. And, the CASA program really sounds like an amazing program and something that's really needed when we start thinking about children and really what's going on with them sometimes in courts and that kind of thing. So tell everybody, though, a little bit more about what is CASA? What's the purpose behind it? What does it do?
Well, the primary purpose of the CASA program is to essentially have a volunteer advocate representing two primary interests. One of them is just simply well being, ensuring that the child is okay and safe and that their basic needs are met while they're in protective custody or foster care. And the other is to ensure, to the best of our ability, timely permanence. So we don't want children to come in foster care and to have any delays that are foreseeable and or preventable. So those CASA volunteers work with either a single child or typically a sibling group, and they make recommendations back to the judge about what they feel is in the child's best interest. They build a relationship with the child and the team, but ultimately we want children to have as normal as possible a childhood experience until we can find permanency outside of the foster care system.
Okay. So now we throw around an acronym, CASA. What is CASA? What does
CASA,
that stand for?
it stands for Court Appointed Special Advocate. And CASA was actually coined here in 1980 under the Honorable Judge Mendoza, who's no longer with us. Previously, programs that had this volunteer advocate component were referred to as guardian ad litems or GAL. But when we started our program in 1980, he decided that he really liked the name CASA. He felt that CASA better represented what the volunteer position actually is. And he also liked the idea that CASA means home in Spanish.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was immediately the correlation that I grew, that I drew with it, right? So tell me this: what is a CASA volunteer? Maybe explain just exactly, what is a volunteer? Who is that kind of a person? How do you find them? Maybe some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so there's some basic facts. Like in our program, we have nearly 400 volunteers, and about 15% are male, and the rest are female. But outside of that, they are individuals who have care and compassion and want to see better outcomes for children in foster care. So they don't necessarily have a background as far as being therapists or working for child welfare or a legal background. They are willing to be an advocate, to bring common sense in the courtroom, and just tell the judge what they think is in the best interest of a child. So, as far as ages, you do have to be at least 21 years old. Majority of our CASA volunteers work full time, and it's just a bunch of caring and compassionate people who step forward into the lives of children in foster care.
So a CASA volunteer isn't necessarily the foster care person. They are a person outside of that, then, right? So a child might be in a foster care home, but still have a CASA volunteer that's still working with them.
Yes, and the program is intentional that if a person is a caregiver, a foster parent, a relative caregiver, they cannot also be the CASA volunteer. That is a very different role. Being a primary caregiver and being responsible for providing shoes, clothing, shelter, medicine, making sure the child goes to school, that's a primary caregiver. A CASA role is very much so different. As a matter of fact, CASA volunteers are not allowed to bring children into their own personal homes. It is intended to be a very professional role that is separate and apart from your own family, but you are required to have a relationship with a child. So, as a program, we want you to see your child at least once a month, face to face. Majority of our CASA volunteers have much more contact with the children that they're assigned to. But this is really an advocate role and really ensuring that well being. There are many other people on the team that have various responsibilities from the foster parent that you mentioned. Children may also have a CAP attorney, which represents their um, what the child says they want and protects their legal interests, which may or may not be the same as what we feel is in the best interest of a child. So there are very distinct roles that are carried with each individual. One which makes CASA volunteers super unique is that typically CASA volunteers only have one child or one sibling group at a time. So a lot of times a CASA volunteer really has the bandwidth to absorb and research and really help to facilitate what some of the needs are.
Hmm. And so, if I then think about CASA volunteers, what's the biggest need that your program has? Is it for volunteers? Is it for donations of some kind? Or, what's the biggest need?
Yeah, our greatest need as a program is to have a CASA volunteer for every child that's in protective custody or foster care. Here in Clark County, we have over 3,000 children annually that will be brought into protective custody. And because we only have approximately 400 volunteers, I believe we have close to like 370. At no time are we able to serve every child that would benefit from having that advocate in their lives. And so whatever we can do to grow our capacity to be able to meet the needs of all children in foster care, that is what we would like to do as a program.
Hmm. Okay. So, any idea what's the need then? You said there's 370. Is that what you said
Approximately
approximately?
370, but
Okay.
some of our CASA volunteers represent a sibling group, so easily, I mean, it would
Hmm.
fluctuate because not all of our CASA volunteers have a case every single day. Some of them cases are closing, they're waiting for reassignment. A few volunteers help out in other capacities, like they may help out with interviews or in the courtroom being an informal support. So easily we as a program could grow to 1,000 to 1,500 to be able to meet the needs of all children in protective custody.
Okay. And so, does that mean also then that a volunteer may have a child that they're working with, but that may only last for a few months? And do they get another child that they then may start to work with? Or how does that work?
Yeah, every case is really situational because we don't have enough CASA volunteers for all children. We, as a program, tend to take the more challenging cases. So I would anticipate that if you take on a new case, at least see yourself being involved with that child's life for the next 12 months or maybe even 24 months. As a program, we ask for at least a 2-year commitment because we want our CASA volunteer to see the case through to permanency. Permanency for us is either reunification back with the parents, it could be guardianship, which essentially means that someone else takes on the parenting responsibilities, but we don't necessarily terminate parental rights. We have adoption, which essentially is terminating parental rights and attaching that child or sibling group to another person and or couple legally. And then we have what we call UPLA, which stands for Other Planned Permanent Living Arrangement. That's reserved for older children. In the event that we don't feel that the other permanency options are available, that child will then start being prepared for aging out of the foster care system pretty much independently.
Okay. Are there any limitations in terms of, can any child receive a CASA volunteer? I mean, is there any criteria that says who can get it and who can't get it or anything like that?
Yeah, no, it's really more if once a child is in protective custody or foster care, essentially, because the term is court appointed special advocate, someone will ask the court or the judge will say, we want a CASA in this case, and we will receive what's called a CASA order. That order then comes over to the CASA program, and we are alerted that the judge is requesting a CASA volunteer be on the case. Because we
Hmm.
don't have enough CASA volunteers for every child, we do have someone that monitors those cases for us. So let's just say a case really starts going terribly, like an adoptive placement disrupts, and we say, oh my gosh, this kid is probably really hurting. Does anyone have a CASA volunteer that can take this case immediately? Or if we have a class graduating, right now we have usually anywhere between 20 to 30 people that we graduate every other month. And so when that class graduates, we will match a child or sibling group with them. So they can anticipate having that case for at least 12 to 24 months. But the reality is, I have seen a few cases close within 30 days or 60 days. And that CASA volunteer can talk to their supervisor to let them know when they're ready to consider another case. Most of my CASA volunteers, they will manage a case, and as soon as it closes, they accept another one. And they just keep doing this until they decide either, they would like to have a break or that they'd like to do some other volunteer opportunity for the program.
Huh. So you said a class. That means that you don't just come off the street and just walk in and become this volunteer, that there's some kind of training involved with it then, right? That people
Absolutely.
get.
Absolutely, yes. And some people will think like, well, what do you need to come into the program with? Do you need to have a legal background, education? Do you need to be a parent? The reality is just we need common sense to come into the courtroom. We can show you how to do case research. We can tell you about laws, practices, policies, procedures. We can introduce you to people. We can discuss processes. We can make some connections because many of us have been like I've been around for 20 years. I have lots of different connections in the child welfare system. We need committed people, but you also need to learn about what to expect because seeing children who've been abused and neglected and seeing systemically kind of what happens and what resources are out there and what to expect when a child has had childhood trauma and removals is a little bit different than parenting your own or even what you see on television. I mean, this is not a 60-minute, Law and Order Stabler. We're going to save the day at the end. These cases are complicated. It isn't always clear what is the best option because sometimes the options that are before you, both both options or all of the options have pieces to it or components that really suck for a child. Being in foster care is really hard. It's not a normal experience. And so we're going to talk about that in training. There are also people that have maybe experienced things that are part of their own life that may be a part of some of their cases. And so we want to make sure that emotionally, that as they take on this role, it's not going to be disruptive to them as an individual because it can be challenging, especially when the outcomes that we want aren't there. Like I see amazing, great, wonderful children, and they just really struggle with being in the foster care system or being abandoned or the perception of abandonment or sibling separations or family separation, and it's just really tough. And so, whatever we can do to have that volunteer to be there and be consistent, even when we're not getting the best outcomes that we believe a child deserves, that is what our children deserve. If they can't be with a family member, if we can't exit them out of the system because there's no permanent and safe place for them to be, having a consistent, caring adult that says, you know what, I'm with you every single day. If you ever need me, pick up the phone. I will go to court for you. I will advocate for you, and I will always be here until we figure out that parenting role and permanency. That's what CASA volunteers do.
Wow, that's impressive. So we are coming up on the end of our interview here, but Couple of questions for you with regard to I know that our event is coming up on the 24th, so it's next Tuesday. Are you going to be there, or is someone going to be there from your organization at that event?
I look forward to being there. I'm going to be there as well as my program administrator. Her name is Miss Sheila Parks.
Okay, good, great, good. So that's one of our call to actions is we're going to ask people to come and meet us there so that they get to meet with you, talk with you, learn more about CASA, right? And what the needs are, and maybe what the needs are to be a volunteer. So hopefully we can get some more people to come down and join us for that. And remember, you can find that at the links that are above our heads here, networklasvegas.com. That's where you can register for it. But if people aren't able to make it to that event, then the best way for them to connect with you is at the website that I just put up there.
Absolutely. CASALasVegas.org. It's
Okay.
accessible 24 hours a day. You're welcome to also call the CASA office, which is 702-455-CASA. And that's again 702-455-2272.
Okay, great. And that's scrolling across the bottom of the screen. So people can always pause this video if they're watching it after the fact. They can always pause this video to capture that number and then to reach out to your organization, and maybe, we can get other people to help out. Now, do you find that it almost seems like there's always this case that there's a larger need for males to get involved in this kind of a thing. But do you have any perspective on that before we wrap up?
I do. I think that anytime there's a service available, that service, if it involves people, should represent the community in which they're a part of. And so the children that we serve, it's about a 50-50. If you look at the numbers of children that are in foster care, when you look at them historically, we have about a 50-50 match. Racially, we have more Caucasian. I think the second on the list is African American. And so I would like to see more of that diversity represented within the volunteer workforce that we have as well.
Great. That was an excellent way to explain that. So that's very good. Now, is there anything else that you would like to leave the people watching this with? Any other comments, thoughts?
Yeah, you know what? I just want more awareness that the CASA program exists. I think a lot of times when people think about children in foster care and ways that they help, they think of basic two things: either a social worker because that's what you see on television, or a foster parent because you believe you have to bring children into your home. But there are ways to help the same population of children without bringing them into your home and without committing to a lifetime of social work. I know that people in this community care about what happens. I've been a volunteer manager for three different areas, one of them being American Red Cross during 1 October. I also helped out for the COVID response, and now I'm with CASA. So I know that when there is a need, this community will step up when they're aware of it. And so even if just having more awareness that this opportunity exists and sharing it with people who may be a great fit is wonderful. But of course, if people are willing to take it on and learn a little bit more about the CASA program, that's also welcome as well.
Very good. Thank you so much. So I appreciate again, your info is still scrolling across the screen right here where people can capture that. But appreciate you coming on, doing this interview. And it's great to share this information that I'm sure lots of people don't know about, just don't know that the program even exists. And so you hang on for a minute, and we'll chat for just a second after this. But for everybody watching, thanks again for watching. This has been another edition of Network Las Vegas speaker spotlight. This is the local organization spotlight interview that we did. So come visit us for some of our meetings, but specifically come for the Tuesday monthly social event that we'll have. It's May 24th. If you're watching it after May 24th, there will be other monthly socials, usually the fourth Tuesday of the month. So come visit, and hopefully you'll like the organization and become a part of what we're doing here in Las Vegas. So, all right. So we will see you next time.
Thank you.
All right. And let's see here. I see I'm in the wrong spot here. There